Good morning. We are here. Give us a moment. I believe it is March the 11th, 2013. It is our new moon in Pisces. And let us begin. We are reading some of the energies. Give us a moment. Pisces is a water sign. And one of the attributes of water is the idea that it can dissolve things. And the other thing about Pisces and water is the idea that things are fluid. And what that means is that they are not rigid and fixed. And there has been many things that have been rigid, fixed, immutable, that are at this time finding themselves finally succumbing to the liquid nature and dissolving. Many of you might know the idea of, say, putting a dish in the sink overnight with water so that the very hard things that are on the pan or whatever will get softer. And this has been occurring with some of these rigid edifices for conservatively 500 years, some 700 years. So go back to those times and ask yourself, what sort of controlling structures were there that could now be succumbing to the softening and dissolving nature of liquid? Of course, you would fall on religion, the religious organizations, particularly the Catholic Church, and we don't mean to pick on the Catholics. They're going through a very rough time that they brought on themselves. And of course the financial systems, the money, the banks and these sorts of things all started around that time. And they attempted to trap, to codify, we're trying to think of words that solidify their power. And they were very successful, both of them, in succeeded in grabbing power. One was in a grouping of political, and the other was in a grouping of financial. And both of these groupings were really able to solidify their control. And that act set the stage for the next few hundred years. And whether it has been the expansion of the West into the new lands and things of this sort, whether it has been the stifling of certain information, the collapsing of certain groupings that were not considered team players or players. And what we mean by all of this is that the world you are in has a structure to it that was built, was put together with the intent to control. Control your thoughts, control what you are available for, what things could come forward, and to control your energies. Understand? Because that is really what they are trying to do, or what they have tried to do. They saw the value of people, not as people, but as energy sources to create wealth for them, whoever they were. And that model that has controlled your science, your religion, your philosophy, your cultures, has created wars, all of those things that have come out of that rigid structure are now being challenged because they are being seen to be weak, or they are weakening. A classic example is what is going on in Syria, where the government only a few years ago would have been considered unassailable, is now really against the ropes, internationally and internally. Their own armies and such are beginning to wonder which side of this they want to be on. The controlling family or the people. And you are seeing this in many, many places. The same kind of uprising of individual value, the value of the individual. And this is a perfect time to sort of let those things dissolve and disappear naturally. Now, when you wake up in the morning and you find that the water has dissolved some of what's in the pan, you still have to get in there and do some scrubbing. We are using an analogy our vehicle is quite familiar with. But it is much easier to do. And we would suggest that you are in a time, probably for the next 3 moons, where it will be very, very easy to start pushing away some of the structures that need to go. And you'll recognize them because they will be seen as dark or not uplifting to life. Understand? And whether it is the way the money system is currently functioning, or whether it is the way the religious structures have controlled people. We're not just talking about the Catholics. The same things are happening within the other cultures, the other religious structures, whether it is Islam or whether it is others. They are all seeing an erosion of the structures that they have put in place. And many are fighting this. Many are fighting it with great ferocity. But the force that is coming in is stronger than these structures. Because these structures are trying to hold a flood of energy. And they are like dikes or whatever. They are like little dams or whatever, trying to hold back the floods. It cannot happen. It will not happen. They can try, or they can just open up and let the water flow, let the information and let the uplifting energies come in. Now, to many, it is difficult to imagine these structures dissolving without knowing what's coming up behind it. It's easy to want to keep the status quo when you don't know what's coming next. And that is where, ideally, the connection each of you are making with spirit is helpful. Our vehicle just attended a program with the crop circles from 2012, and how the 2012 crop circles were unfolding in this season. For those of you who are not familiar with crop circles, we would suggest you look it up. It is a phenomenon of communication outside of your paradigm. And what that communication is attempting to do is to help you move through this time. And that same kind of thing is occurring to each and every one of you in your world. When you can allow yourself to slow down, calm down, take a deep breath, and then just let this information find you. It is kind of like what happens when you go out into the woods. When you first go out into the woods, it seems like it's a very quiet place until you find a tree. And then you sit down and you get quiet. And all of a sudden the sounds of the woods area really begins to pick up. And you might hear crickets, or you might hear birds, or you might hear other things. You might hear the wind going through the trees. You might hear children playing in the distance. You begin to hear what you could not hear before because you were too shut down and too overwhelmed. You needed to quiet yourself. And we know we have said this many times, but this is really the time when getting quiet and letting the information that is out there and the energies begin to move through you. Because it will bring information, it will bring hopefully a level of calmness that what is going on is natural, needed, and for your best good, for your best interests. Now, if you are so tied up in the structure that you are in, this is very unnerving times for you. But if you can see that the structure that you have been put in, that has been built around you, is more a cage than a home, then you will be okay with it dissolving. And knowing that what is coming next has a higher vibration. And it's difficult for us to speak broadly about this topic because each of you will have your own version of it. And for some who have really bought into the matrix, if you will, it will be very difficult. It is a hard thing. It is like your first day of kindergarten. You must give up all of the things you were doing before to get into this rigid thing called school that has some amorphic use to you that you cannot imagine. What do I care about learning? What do I care about reading? What do I care about mathematics? What do I care about philosophy or history? I'm watching cartoons, leave me alone. It's very much like that. But if you can imagine that part of this growth that is you needs to meet this new challenge and move into it because it is part of growing, it can send a energy back into your body, into your field, that has a very calming effect. And so that is one of the reasons why we take the time to speak to you, but others do as well. Whether they are angelic realms, or whether they are the fairy realm, or whether it is the nature realms, or whether it is your dream states, there are communications coming through you, to you, around you, to help you understand this time and be okay with it. Or at least not freak out during it. Because that is really the challenge. Everyone has always said, why don't the extraterrestrials just come and land and get it over with? Bring the big spaceships, land over every city, let's let it happen. And yet, we are here to tell you there would be many that would be freaked and would suicide themselves or do something else or totally go into craziness. Religious people that would think it was the devil coming or whatever. It is not that any individual, but is what would happen to the masses. And so with this mass culture, this mass consciousness that you have, it sets a level of acceptable events. And so you have to kind of move that grouping in stages. Like herding sheep or something. No, I'm not trying to be disparaging in that, but it's very similar. If you were to go out into the field and just grab a gun and shoot it off and all the sheep run all over the place, good luck helping them get somewhere. Maybe some will jump off a cliff and some will run into the river or something, or some will butt heads against each other and harm each other. Now, there comes a point in time when you can wait no longer. When the birthing pains begin and you are in labor. And that was the point in time that the Mayans talked to you about, which has already occurred. So you are in those labor pains. And what is it they tell you? Breathe. What is it you learn with all of these labor, all of these processes to help you in labor? Learn how to breathe. Whatever. Understand? All these breaths and all these motions to help you ease the body, ease the mind. And we would say the same thing here. Breathe. Go out into nature and do some deep breathing. And let some big ahs out. Ah. And then come back and learn a little more. And go back and go, ah. Where are we going with this? You are on the verge of some changes. And they are going to have the permanence of a birth. You will never be able to go back before what it was like before. You are only going forward at this time. And if you can be relaxed and expecting a higher level of existence from this, then you can go into joy. You can go into you can reach a level of ecstatic joy. If you are thinking dread, if you are thinking the end of the way things were, if you're thinking this is horrible, then that is what you will find. And you will find yourself struggling. Now you will not struggle forever, but you will struggle at a time you don't have to. And that it isn't to your benefit. Now, with that we will depart, because we believe we have said a lot, and yet we have said nothing. We want you to think about it. This will all make more sense in the coming moons. It's been our pleasure. Good day to all of you.